My name is Dr. Kevin Pecca. I wanted to make a podcast that exposes people to the true miracles of life and health. All the guests on this show have been specially picked because they bring something positive to the world. They have some of the most amazing and inspiring life stories. These people have a passion for living, healing, and leaving the world better than they found it. There is something inside these people that made them keep fighting through all the tough times, even when people told them it was not possible. They carried on and made their lives beautiful again. And now they are sharing their experiences with the world. This is the Expect Miracles podcast. Enjoy the show. Melissa Binkley is an intuitive intelligence coach, trauma specialist, and best-selling author of Invincible: How to Embrace Failure and Achieve Transformational Success. She has such an inspiring life story that she is going to share on the podcast today, and she is helping others transcend and open up to a higher level of consciousness. She is an amazing person. I really enjoyed this episode. Please welcome Melissa Binkley. Today on the Expect Miracles podcast, we have a very special guest, Melissa Binkley. Melissa is a humanitarian on a mission to help society transcend through trauma to a new level of consciousness. She is the creator and founder of the Intuitive Intelligence Academy. She is an intuitive intelligence trainer, certified mastery transformational coach, soul and business strategist, #1 best-selling author. Melissa is a dynamic, highly sought-after international speaker and thought leader known for her ability to transcend limiting beliefs. She uses several techniques that fuse science and spirituality, personal development, and the quantum field. Please welcome Melissa Binkley.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to have you. You come very highly recommended from Tracy. She's always sending me the best guests. So thank you so much for coming on. So Melissa, where are you from originally?
I was originally born in Dallas, Texas, and moved from there when I was 9 to Ohio. So I really consider myself an Ohioan, even though I lived in Texas till I was 9.
Great. And how was life growing up for you? What were you into and everything like that?
Great question. How was life growing up for me? It was pretty challenging. My mother left at the age when I was 9 years old, which is what created the shift to moving to Ohio. And by the time I was 10 years old, I had had a lot of trauma in my life. If you've ever heard of like ACE, the ACE score, like adverse childhood experiences.
I have not.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So if you can just dive into that real quick.
I'm sure a lot of people haven't. So the ACE score is a test developed by psychologists. It has 10 questions. And for every question that a child under the age of 18 answers yes to, exponentially the risk of disease, illness, suicide, drug use all go up exponentially. And so these 10 questions that you answer, I answered yes to all 10 of them by the age of 10. So you can imagine by the time I was a high achiever, I was, a perfectionist on the outside, but I was very traumatized. And by the time I moved to Ohio at the age of 9, and moved into that 10th year, I had already experienced everything from sexual trauma to a lot of these other experiences that had happened. So my childhood was not your normal rosy, fun experience that most kids have.
How did you feel as a child? Were you just constantly frightened, or were you just pushing it down and trying to ignore it?
I did a real good job deflecting, disassociation. So I didn't really feel like I was in my body. As a child, I was very spiritual and didn't realize that that's what it was. So I was always like leaving my body to go play somewhere else, right? Like
absolutely.
I'm in La La Land while leaving. So I learned to detach from my body, which ended up causing eating disorders later in my life and exercise disorders and things, because of course, like my body to me was just a tool. It wasn't me, so I lived in an experience of that. But for me, people that have trauma, I think they go several different ways. Like some become very reclusive and fearful and hidden. I became boisterous and angry and mean. I was like, you're not going to mess with me. I was a little kid who ended up getting, even though I was a straight A student, would get detentions, would kick the other kids. I was basically like the fight or flight, and I was the fighter. That was kind of how I lived my experience and, went through that whole thing. But I was a super high achiever. So I was like the kid that went to all of that the teachers picked to go to all of the testing for all the high achievement stuff. I graduated top of my class from high school. I did anything and everything I could to not be at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
What it was about. And by the time I got into college, I was brutally raped my senior year in high school. So it kind of was the icing on the cake. And by the time I got into college, I was a complete perfectionist on the outside, doing all these things, but was like, you would find me in closets with bite marks up and down my arm. I graduated from college with a, summa cum laude. I graduated and got a, awesome six-figure job right out of school. But within that experience of having that happen, we came into 9/11 right around because I graduated in 2000 and I lost my six-figure job. And so I did what any normal traumatized 21-year-old who I had at that time, I had a daughter, I'd already had my daughter, would do is I became a drug dealer, a drug trafficker. No, right. And so I ended up spending a lot of my 20s in eating disorders, drug trafficking, drug dealing, that kind of experience of, and I would have never called it trauma. Like I had no idea that that's what that asked me back then. I was like, I fixed all that. Like I worked on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm fine.
Yeah.
I just buried it really, really deep. And it showed up in all of these physical conditions in my body. I ended up with like hypothyroidism. I ended up with eczema and psoriasis. I ended up with hormone issues and adrenal fatigue and physical issues that started manifesting not only from the drug use, but also from the eating disorders, but also from the emotional
The trauma. Yeah.
to myself. Nobody teaches you that emotional trauma is actually will cause disease. They
Absolutely.
tell you go eat different food, get healthy, take medications, all those types of things, which I tried for years. I tried all these different things and finally, got to a place where when I decided to walk away from all of that, I walked away from everything in 2004 and I spent the next 5 years getting healthy.
Did you have like an aha moment where you're like, I can't do this anymore?
Yes, I did actually. In 2004, my aha moment was I had a huge party at my house. I had this big, beautiful home where I would have 30 to 40 to 100 people come in a night, and we would have DJ spinning and, every drug that you could imagine that people could get their hands on. And I dosed two of my dear friends, their names were Nick and Nate, with a GHB, and they both flatlined in my house. And at that moment, when that happened, the previous week, a friend of mine had had a party and somebody had died at that party because of something similar. And I looked at the people at my party and I said, no one dies on my watch. I will go to jail first. And I said, so leave now, take every amount of anything that you can get your hands on, go, I'm calling the bus. So they came, they revived those two boys in my house, and then they got to the hospital and they flatlined again and they revived them a second time. But at that moment, there were men in suits with ties that, of course, they're pulling me into a room at the hospital, like drilling me about what happened. And I just bawling, crying my eyes out, laying on the ground saying, if those boys die, you can take me now. You can take me now because I'll never live through it. And they survived. I got away with not going to jail and I walked away. It was really my aha moment. And I left Ohio about 2 weeks later and I moved to Florida. And I really pretty much, that was it for me. And so I spent those next 5 years literally trying to get healthy. I started doing the right things. I got a real job. I started doing fitness and figure competitions and eating really healthy and became did all this stuff that I thought was the right way to do things. And then in 2009, everything blew up.
Even more so than it already had?
Yeah, because what I say is before every breakthrough, there's a breakdown. You have to break down old beliefs, ideas, and habits to break through to a new existence. And what had happened was I hadn't let go of all that old processing or that thinking. I was still holding the trauma. I was just trying to fix a problem from the surface level, but I hadn't done any work. Like I just was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm going to go to a job and I'm going to eat good food and everything's going to be okay. And so in 2009, my partner that I was living with at the time, she left me and ended up moving upstairs with our best friend. I lost that job that I had gone and I got fired from the job because I went and said that, I had a thing with sexual harassment and they ended up firing me instead. And I got evicted from my apartment all within 6 months. And so I ended up homeless.
So rock bottom.
Yeah, rock bottom. Rock bottom when I thought I was doing all the right things. And, how many of us do that? Like we think we're on this path and I'm doing everything right according to society's standards. I got the job. I got the normal job. I got I'm eating supposedly correctly. I'm doing all these things. And yet everything was falling apart. But the magic in that or the miracle that comes from this is that we don't realize that that is when the universe is actually giving us the gift. That's when they're saying, here, you actually are ready for the next step.
Yeah. Making room for the good stuff to come in.
Yeah. You're awakening. You have to get rid of all of that other those things in your life. And I literally did. I got rid of everything. It was like I was like starting from scratch again. It was starting all over. And so I spent about a year living in my car. And
And if you don't mind, how old are you at this point?
yeah, at that point, I was 27 years old.
Okay. Because I feel like a lot of people are scared to start over, especially when you get into like the late 20s and 30s
Yeah.
and think it's too
Well, I take
late.
that back. So I was 27 in 2004. So this is 5 years later. So I was 32. So I was 32 in 2009.
Yeah, that's a tough time to start completely over.
Yeah. And my daughter, so I had my daughter in 1998. And so this was 11 years later. My daughter was 11 years old. She had been through already like the drug mom, right? Like she had dealt with that. And then mom had walked away and decided, she was my deciding factor. And I was like, I can't go to jail because I'll miss out on my whole daughter's life. And that was one of the, when all that stuff happened in '04, that I was like, my daughter was the most important thing. And then she saw me like growing through these stages. And then to have this piece happen here, I'll tell you, I had bad mother syndrome for years. I thought I was the worst mother that ever walked the earth, because of all of these different things that had happened. So yeah, so this was in 2009. I was 32 years old. I was at the bottom of everything. I didn't have a home. I had a car. So that's a lot better than some people that end up homeless on the streets. You know what? I had the thing that I now look back on, and the blessing that I realize is I actually had friends. I had people that if I had been willing to just be like, hey, I need help. But back then I didn't know to ask for help, that they would have opened their doors for me. I would have been okay. But I was too proud and too trying to, I got this and figure it out for myself to really do it. And in that year, because I remember that moment when I got that eviction notice and I said, I'm like, I surrender. I give up. Like, I don't know what else to do. Do you ever have that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. That's why this show started. I was like rock bottom in 2010. I had a bunch of concussions and it was going on for 4 years. And I woke up one day and I was like, I literally can't do this anymore. Physically spent, emotionally spent. I don't want to live anymore. And yeah, I've been there. Different circumstances, but been there. Yeah.
Right. But I think so many of us have that moment and we've been searching and we've been looking. And it's not until we have the absolute surrender when we're just literally like, I can't control this. I don't have the answer. I don't know anything anymore. Some things, somebody show me the way, right? That's like here. And that's when that moment when you get to have that miracle that shows up in your life and you're like,
I
back then,
100% agree with that. Yeah.
this podcast is called Expect Miracles because back then I wouldn't have expected a miracle. I didn't believe in a miracle. I didn't know what a miracle was. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, and now I do expect miracles every day. But that was for me, it was that moment. Then I was like, oh, here. And I said, whatever the path is. In that year, I was connected to a doctor, a woman by the name of Dr. Eddie. And she ended up becoming a personal training client of mine. And she's like, you need to go to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. She's like, you love fitness, you love nutrition, and, that's going to help you on your path. And I was like, okay, like I can't afford to live at a home, but I'll make the monthly payment to start going to school for this thing. And I ended up getting a home. I met my now ex-wife and, I ended up moving in with her and I started going to school. Yeah, have you ever heard of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition?
I haven't. Where is that?
So it is based out of New York, but they are an online school, but they are worldwide. They are the world's leading health coaching school, and they've had hundreds of thousands of graduates. And so their teachers are like Deepak Chopra and Gabby Bernstein and Mark Hyman and Ariana Huffington and myself. So now, funny, I went to school there in 2010, and then in 2015, they invited me back to be a teacher.
Wow. So you met Deepak?
Yes, I have met Deepak. Yeah. I've been on stage with Marianne Williamson. I've done work with John DeMartini, and we've done work together from the movie The Secret, and like a lot of different things that I've gotten opportunities at this point to work with. But in 2009, 2010, when this stuff was going on, I had no idea what I was saying yes to. I was just trying to figure out the next step.
What was that school able to do for you?
It's like, they call marijuana the doorway drug. It was the doorway drug for me into a life of wellness and spirituality. Like I had never heard of the concepts that Deepak was talking about. It wasn't in my field. Like I had never heard of, I learned a lot about nutrition, which is why I went. That was my goal. But it was the doorway into some of these other things that I hadn't known about, because as I started to heal my body and heal from the years of the drug abuse that had come from, years before, and healing my thyroid condition and all of these different types of things physically, what I really started to notice was I looked in the mirror, but I didn't like myself. Not only did I not love myself, I didn't like myself. Like I didn't like the person that was staring back at me. So I didn't matter that I was physically healing. I was not mentally or emotionally or spiritually healed. And so it was my first opportunity at, it introduced me, I had read like the Celestine prophecy back in like 1999 and didn't really understand it. And so it was the next time that I had an opportunity to start understanding about the miraculous, about miracles, about the quantum. And that got me into diving deeper into neuroscience and quantum physics and the psychology behind all of this stuff, because I was now helping clients in health coaching, but they were having instantaneous healings and spontaneous remissions and like all these different types of things. And I started learning about these other pieces because I was healing myself. And so I went from that in 2010 to working with clients and started building my life. And by 2014, I ran my first conference. And by 2016, I was international. And now we're in 2019, and I have an academy, and we're an international organization in about 15 countries, getting ready to do a 5-week tour through Australia where we're working with like the Department of Justice and the Australian Medical Association and the Psychotherapy and Counseling Association, and doing media and TV and all these different things, teaching this intuitive intelligence work, this deep connection to quantum miracles and transformational healing and understanding how to do that. So I went from back there and learning all that into in 9 years time. And I'm assuming like talking to you, you said 2010 for you, that you have a similar like, well, how much can you quantum leap in an amount of years and a lot of work that's put in it. But like, I couldn't have never imagined back in 2010 if you had told me in that space, like, when I was just finishing Institute for Integrative Nutrition, I had just come out of being homeless for a year, that 9 years later I would be doing this type of work. I would have been like, yeah, you're on something.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Melissa, I'm curious about the work you do. I don't know much about it. I've heard great things. So, if you could just explain what it is that you do and how you help the people heal. And before I forget, I know you're probably going to touch on this. I'm curious to see how you bring the quantum physics into the spiritual component, because a lot of people just think it's woo woo and just like BS. They don't believe in it, but they are starting to bring in the scientific data and the evidence around that, which is very powerful and what some people need to see to believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the goal with what we teach at the academy is we teach the science backing to the spirituality, because we want to get those left brain people that don't believe. Like, we work with a lot of engineers or people that just are like, oh, give me something, give me a piece of that. So I'll go into a little bit about the quantum and some things, but first I'll explain what intuitive intelligence is. We were just interviewed by Inc. magazine, and it's going to be coming out next month, about, you think everybody's heard of emotional intelligence, right? Like I have an emotional IQ, which is, well, intuitive intelligence or your intuitive IQ reflects a person's ability to connect with the heart, the collective conscious, and the higher self, and how that improves your performance, healing trauma, and manifesting the future. By using your intuitive intelligence and connecting to the field, the quantum field, what I call the God field, we can facilitate thinking, understand meanings, create profound change, and heal patterns and trauma, and connect to the world. And right now, there is fascinating research that is beginning to uncover the nature and functioning of intuition and heart intelligence and the field as a way for complete transformation. So that by using intuitive intelligence, rather than responding to situations from habitual patterns that are not necessarily healthy or constructive, we can use these situations to be more effectively addressed with more new and creative solutions that are brought to us by connecting literally into this field of intelligence, this infinite field, the web that we're all connected to. And that allows us to use our available inner resources that are congruent with one's deeper intuition and core values. So in other words, we can learn to literally intentionally align and access our intuitive intelligence, which can provide moment-to-moment guidance and empower us to literally live in a heart-based living. And in our program, we have 12 different techniques that go both through rewiring cognitively in the brain, using the heart, which the heart has a brain on it, which is usually, to a lot of people, they're like, what? Yeah. So the brain on the heart has 40,000 sensory neurites, and that actually controls our cranial brain. Because we hear a lot about like mindset, right? Like, just change your mindset or do positive affirmations and everything will be okay. Well, if that's the case, why doesn't it work for everybody? We're missing something, right? What are we missing? Well, we're missing the core underlying that we need to be feeling instead of thinking. And our hearts actually think, but people think we think with our brains. And so they've gotten it all backwards. So we hear a lot about like subconscious programming and NLP and different things like that. But this is on a deeper level of getting to the core vibrational feeling and the electromagnetic field, the torus that comes out of our heart, and how we shift that and connect the heart to the pineal gland here for those science buffs out there that want to have some of the non-woo-woo part of it, right? So we're connecting this heart brain to our pineal gland and creating coherence between the two, which actually turns our body into an antenna that connects into the field that then allows us to both heal trauma and manifest, create miracles and magic and the quantum, which literally creates things flowing to us or instant manifestation or how you can expect miracles.
Absolutely. So here's the $1,000,000 question. How do you get that connection? How do you get that antenna going up?
So I'm going to teach you guys a technique that is, we teach this to kids as young as 3 years old, and you can start using this right away, and it will literally create, it's 0.1 megahertz coherence, which is the same coherence that the earth vibrates on, the same hertz, and that will start to create this connection that will automatically turn you into an antenna. And if you start doing this, and it's little as 3 minutes a day, we will literally start to change the patterns in your body and stop sucking energy from your environment and become the energy that you are. So you ready? You want to learn it?
I'm so ready for this. Let's see it.
So this is what I call heart breathing. And it's a real simple. So the first thing when people are we want to get out of our minds and connect to our heart to become aware of this intuitive space in our heart. So for people that have a problem with that or not sure how to do that, I say you can touch your heart space, look at that heart chakra. So, right. And automatically when you do that, whenever, right, if you touch a part of your body, where does your mind go? Where does your process go? So we're going right here to that space so that we're connecting in. And as soon as you start to create that connection, I already noticed that everything starts to calm down. Like you already start to notice a little difference. And now what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in through the heart. So you're going to actually imagine the breath is coming in through the heart. So you're breathing in through the heart for a count of 5. And you're seeing that breath and it's traveling all the way up to the crown. Some people call it the crown chakra. It's the pineal gland. It's where the pituitary gland, all of that yummy stuff is there, and where we want to really focus that breath. And we want to breathe in and we squeeze and hold at the top, holding it up there for a count of 5, and then breathing back out through the heart. And you're going to repeat this breath. And as you're repeating the breath, breathing in, you're going to start to feel a feeling of appreciation, love, or gratitude. So that's the vibration that literally starts to change the electromagnetic field. So when you do this for 2 to 3 minutes, feeling that feeling, you will literally shift your whole body and you'll start to shift into what's called an alpha state. So we're actually changing the brain waves because we have 5 different types of brain waves. We have a beta, which is what we live in on a regular basis. We have alpha, which is where they start right into that meditative state. Then we have a theta, a delta, and a gamma. And gamma is where you get the mystical experiences that people talk about. And when we get into an alpha, a theta, a delta, and a gamma, this is where we can actually use our bodies as an antenna to bring in that field. So the key is by creating this coherence and doing this heart breathing. Sounds so simple. It seems like just like a simple technique, but literally if you sit there and just do that breath and feel a feeling of love, appreciation, gratitude, do it for 2 or 3 minutes, you will completely change your state in your brain waves. And that will start to create this coherence and allow you to start using the field.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. That was great. Yeah. Okay. So that's one of your techniques. What are your audience that you're reaching? I'm sure you have a lot of people like that were used to be or currently addicted to drugs or whatever it might be. I'm sure you have some business CEOs and you're able to help a wide range spectrum. And is it because it's all coming from within?
Yeah, so we can help a wide range because the ability to use some of these techniques anybody can do. So I've gone to India and Nepal and worked with sex trafficking victims. I'm headed to Uganda and Kenya this year to work with victims of sexual genital mutilation and sexual violence. And so some of these techniques are super simple enough that we can teach anybody across barriers of languages to learn them. But then also we do trainings and certifications where we teach the even deeper layers and levels so that people can go in. So we teach doctors and psychologists and coaches. You know, a lot of coaches like to use this in their work. Life coaches, transformational health coaches. You know, you can use the processes from stage and work with audiences. So, like, you know, a lot of my clients like to make a joke and they call me like the female version of Tony Robbins, but you know, spiritual. Like I do large events and we'll do this work from the stage, and you can have a whole audience shift.
That's probably very powerful to get everyone on board like that.
Yeah, and exactly. So it really depends. Like if somebody, you know, 70% of all adults have had trauma. And even if you haven't had a specific trauma, there's areas of your life that you want to shift, that you want to change, that you want to do different things. or you just want to create a new probability or a new future. So the learning how to tap into your intuitive intelligence and how to see pictures in your brain and use that to create a new future is just as powerful as healing your past. So there's all these different opportunities for ways that you can use it that will be really beneficial. So one of my big goals is to get into the government. So we're starting with the government in Australia. I am lucky enough to be working with the New South Wales Department of Justice and the Queensland Department of Justice in March, and we're going to be going in. So I believe if I can get a foothold there and show them, we're going to be showing techniques that maybe the government over here will allow us to come in and understand, because we want to trickle down into audiences. Like if we can get people to stop responding in certain ways to things, and we can really shift the way that society reacts, and we can create a more coherent global coherence in society together, and through that work out on a level for transformation. So intuitive intelligence really for me is about a conscious revolution. It's about allowing all of us together to raise our consciousness and to heal so that we can go into a new future, because we're moving into a new age, right? We're definitely moving into a new age. I mean, how long ago, I can't imagine 30 years ago that people were openly talking about expecting miracles.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely not. It's a different story out in California. I spent 4 years out in California, and people are way more open to everything you're talking about. East Coast is a little more difficult. You know, you got to break some more barriers
I just
down.
moved to California. I lived in South Florida for 11 years before I just came out here about a year ago. I do more events on the East Coast than I do here in California. I've done events in New York all the time, in South Florida all the time, Atlanta. And everybody says like, oh, here in California, it's definitely more open, but it's a very interesting crowd. But I do think they have more of a conversation about it at times.
Yeah. And Melissa, I want to talk to you about, you mentioned manifestation. What is the best way to go about manifesting something that you want, whether it's a job, a loved one, it could like anything, money. Is there a right or wrong way to do it? And what's the best way to do it?
Yeah. So manifesting is really about a level of consciousness and a connection to our consciousness, right? Like connecting to something greater than ourselves. And one of the things that I talk about with manifesting, one of my favorite ways that I teach people is you want to learn how to connect into the field. I call it the God field. Greg Braden calls it the divine matrix. You can call it whatever you want. It's the super conscious or the collective consciousness. And it's the ability for us to connect into that allows for manifestation. And one of the best ways that you can do that is to do what I call live as if. So it's the experience of you to create and manifest. You can't create and manifest if you're living in the past. If you're worried about like the things that you don't have, you have to exist as if it already exists for you, because in the quantum it does. It's somewhere in the soup, whatever you want to call it, it already exists. And so to have it actually physically show up in your life is a change in perception. Our brains, we only process 2,000 bits of information per second, but our brains process 4 billion bits, but we only see 2,000 of it. So literally, what are we missing by not perceiving all those other things? So manifesting is literally a change in perception so that you're not only seeing this 2,000%, but opening your vision to intake a lot more. And you do that through the connection of the field. And so one way to do that is to be a living experience of what you already believe and want to have. So let's take an example of somebody that wants to manifest being a multimillionaire, like just subvert it, right? Okay, because everybody wants to talk about money. Well, how does a multimillionaire live? What do they do? How do they experience? Like, what does it feel like? How do they make decisions? What are they doing? When they go out, how are they driving? Is somebody driving them? What are they doing? Are they taking a helicopter to go somewhere compared to, this, like these different types of things, like literally living as if it already exists for you will actually bring it into your field and bring it into you. So one of the things like that I really do is you have to feel like it's already present. You can't think about it. You can't, cognitively make it happen. You have to really like be there. So back in 2013, I said I was going to be an international speaker. I was like, I didn't know how I was going to be an international speaker, but I owned it. I was like, I am an international speaker. Like I am going to be doing this. And in 2013, I was like, just barely out of being homeless and not really making a lot of money or anything, but I hopped into that space. And sure enough, by 2016, I was an international speaker. I did a conference in 2015. It was my second conference that I did. And I was doing an event with Dr. John DeMartini, who's, the doctor from the movie The Secret. And one of the pieces was, it was like, I have promised that I would put over 100 people in the room for this event. And 3 weeks before the event, I have like 25 tickets sold. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, right? Like, I'm like, I'm in so much trouble. I have all these sponsors. I have all these things going on. But I literally kept living as if I would step into it. I would visualize every day. I would close my eyes. I would see myself on stage in this blue dress. I didn't own this blue dress yet. I saw myself on stage in this blue dress and hugging DeMartini in a room with standing room only with the people packed in the room. And I kept feeling it and seeing it and, knowing it was going to exist. And I kept feeling his hug. A week before the event, my stylist came in and they brought me 3 dresses. Literally, one of the dresses that they brought me was the blue dress. I didn't tell them I wanted a blue dress, but I had literally created it as such a real experience that your mind, your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and something that doesn't exist. That's why people mentally rehearse Olympians, right? They mentally rehearse.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
you're mentally rehearsing your life. That's exactly, so we're doing this. But the key is that not only do you have to do it in your mind, you have to feel it. You have to literally, the feeling through the heart brain is what brings it to you. So they come in with the dress. And by the time the event actually showed up, I had standing room only. We had sold 110 tickets. And I was in that blue dress standing on stage, hugging DeMartini,
Yeah.
the exact vision that I had seen. But I believed it. I knew it was going to happen. I didn't waver in my belief of it, even though I didn't know how it was going to happen. And I literally stayed in that. And then every day I took action steps towards making it happen, right? Like I just did the little things that I needed to do. And that's how you manifest. Like it's an energetic way of being along with a creation in your mind. Like those two things will create a manifestation for you.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's some powerful stuff right there. So, Melissa, why would people come, or what kind of people would come to get coached by you and just your program? What kind of people get attracted to that?
Yeah, we have several different ones. Like I said, we have a certification training where we train doctors and coaches and different people like that in the program. We also have people that come because they want to learn techniques to heal and help their families and help their friends and and themselves, so that they can learn a little bit of, like, maybe they just want to manifest, or maybe they want to heal some stuff from their past and they've tried cognitive therapies and they've tried all these other things and they're like, I've tried everything and I don't know what else to do. We have a lot of people that come to us because they're like, I've tried it all, and then end up taking the courses. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I want to go out and help others, right? I want to do that type of thing. We do like intensive retreats where you can come for 4 days and maybe you have a physical issue and you want to heal an ailment, and they'll literally come in with an issue and then walk out 4 days later and it's healed. We've had x-ray proof and seen different things like that where you can come in. Maybe it's a mental thing. Like for me, it was definitely mental. Like my mental had turned into physical issues, but I wanted to learn how to heal, the mental gunk. I used to be on Prozac and Valium and all sorts of, I was considered bipolar. I haven't taken a medication in, over 10 years now, things like that where you just want to heal. So if everybody would have gone to like therapy or, different things like that, and you want to learn how to get some really great tools to move forward, it's great. And we have all different levels, like retreats or conferences that we do, or the trainings we do different, like we all have online certifications and training. So
Great. And where can people find you online and your courses and all that?
if you want to know about me personally, Melissa Binkley, over any social media, melissabinkley.com. But if you want to know about the Academy and what we're doing there, it's Intuitive Intelligence Academy. That's all over all social media too, or intuitiveintelligenceacademy.com. And that'll take you to information about the Academy. And then a link on there will take you to our trainings. And through any of that, you can send us a message and ask about our retreats and the different things that we're doing.
Great. And at the end of every episode, I like to ask all my guests, what is one piece of advice that has really resonated with you, that if you've taken with you over the years, that you would like to gift the audience? Could be absolutely anything.
Awesome. So one of the things that I think is most important is to understand is that we're all 3 feet from gold. Like you're already almost there. Like you're not broken, and just persist. Whatever you do, don't give up on yourself, because you are such a unique and miraculous being. And everything that you want is already right there waiting for you. You just keep moving forward.
Love that. Well, Melissa, thank you so much. This was a great episode. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I would love to have you back on anytime.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kevin.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, subscribe, give us 5 stars, and leave a review. It really helps boost the podcast and spread the good word. My chiropractic practice is located in West Orange, New Jersey at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. You can also find us on Facebook at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. All of my information is on my website at drkevinpecca.com, drkevinpecca.com. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dr. Kevin Pecca for podcast episodes, patient testimonials, and educational videos. I have daily affirmations and inspirational quotes on Instagram at Easel Affirmations, EASEL Affirmations. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at drkevinpecca@gmail.com, drkevinpecca@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Cheers.